Well, hello everyone. Welcome to The Magician and the Witch, a kind of podcast. Episode 4 tonight. My name is Easy, and I'm joined here by Becky.
Hello, sorry. No, sorry. I was reading something on the screen.
I thought you froze.
Sorry. No, I'm here. It's Becky. Hi. So I appear to be having computer and technical issues, so just in case anything happens on the stream.
Yeah, well, it's a recurring thing sometimes with us. Technical issues. We're continuing where we left off on the last episode. And you want to say something before we start?
Yeah, it was just a quick note about our main D&D game that happens on a Sunday. This week we're not playing due to unforeseen circumstances. I know I was going to potentially be late, but our DM will not be able to make it, and we cannot run a game without a dungeon master, so we will have to postpone it this week, and we will have to start it next week, whatever next Sunday's date is. That's yeah. As you can see, I'm functioning on very little sleep today. I'm not very well. Anyway, I'm sure Easy has questions to ask as we're moving on into further subjects of this. Back to you, Easy.
We left off on the last episode. I was saying that we're going to talk about psychic work in Wicca specifically. And what is psychic work? And what is the difference from magic? Because on Wicca we talk about magic and spells, but then we enter a new segment, we could say that, which is psychic work.
Mm-hmm. So it's psychic, the psychic term. I wouldn't class myself as it, but it's kind of ascertaining knowledge through the heightened mental perceptive abilities. So using your mind power. I mean, you see it in certain TV shows in popular culture where people can use like telekinesis and stuff like that. Like psychic abilities kind of handle with that. They can do with touch. They can do with like gaining, just being attuned to the surrounding area. It can also be like this. I think there's two like there's natural ones where sight is a type of psychic ability. There's touch, there's taste, there's instinct, just being physically aware. Sometimes it's linked with the paranormal, so sometimes you'll have people that will like stop and go, there's something wrong. I have been known into the past to walk sometimes into a room and go, there's something wrong here. And I wouldn't say that it's a true psychic ability, but you can definitely feel like the vibe changes with like a psychic shift. And basically, using a psychic abilities is to use the mind to ascertain certain things, whether it's to talk to people who have passed on or to know things in the physical world that you as a physical being wouldn't know otherwise.
And would you say that that all of us are psychic in some form or shape, or just specific people?
I personally am of the belief that everyone has some sort of latent psychic. I know I said sexual then. Psychic abilities. I would also say that they have like some kind of latent magical, and it's some people are more attuned to it. And it can be due to how we grow up. So I know I read something a while, it was like, I think about a year or so ago, that talked about as children, we have like the ability for imagination and we can believe things. But as we grow up, we're told to suppress that. We're told to grow up and be more mature. And some people actually state that those who are not suppressed and hindered like that go on to develop stronger magical and psychic abilities, whereas those who listen to those around them and listen to like society standards, they do not have that psychic ability. So I personally believe that everyone does. It's just whether you listen to it and work on it, or if you choose to just ignore it and move on.
And so could you train yourself to do that? So
I do, yeah. Go on.
No, in the sense like if we all have if it's something latent, are we able to train ourselves to be really, let's say, strong psychic instead of just that spark of power?
So yeah, I think it's just we've spoke about previously about magic, and being better at like spells and better at doing certain things. Those kind of abilities, it's just like a muscle. You need to practice it. You need to work at it. You basically start off doing the basic things, which at first can be quite hard to do. But the more you do it, the more you'll then realize that actually when you're not you type in doing emails for work or anything like that, you're actually doing it subconsciously. So such as like meditating, calming your mind, blocking out external like stimuli, and then that can help just listen to that inner soul, that inner ability of yours, and then you can sort of start to push it out. But yeah, you can develop it. It's not something that in a week you'll have and be able to do and start contacting ghosts on the other side, or being able to read people's minds. It is something that you have to work at. Some people will be more naturally gifted than others, just like in everything. So like I'm not a natural born runner compared to the athletes that can run fucking miles in like however many minutes, but I have other natural gifts that they might not have. So it's just everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and some people are just better at it. But it's definitely something, the more you work at it, the better it becomes.
So I already mentioned to it, I have the issues with psychic claims because it goes into relation to magic, to what I do, and we tend to be the skeptic ones. Some magicians are really skeptic and try to debunk the so-called psychics, because it's always the thing that they claim to do something, or they claim to have the power, and when we come to terms to prove it, to show it, there's always an issue. The thing is, in science, we tend not to go into a point where I don't believe and I'm going to prove that it doesn't exist. The right way we should go into it like, I'm not sure if it exists. Let's see. We put in place all the proper methods and tests. And my issue with psychic claims, because when it comes to magic, religion, it's your own belief in whatever you believe. And then when it comes to this psychic work, or some kind of psychic work, they tend to, it involves other people, and you give opinions, and you give advice, and you give the medical advice, which is the worst. And with that, I don't agree, because first of all, I've never had any proof of that. And I know they can be faked. That's the issue, because I've faked not psychic powers, but I made tarot readings, and I know how to do them, more or less. And I do palm readings. That I know how to do. And it got to a point where people believed what I was saying. And I was like, this is not real power or any kind of... And people believed either way. It didn't matter what I said, that it's not real, it's just it's a skill. And they wanted to pay for consultations with a person that's saying it's not true on my end. And then I see the other part, that people take advantage of that. And not saying that there isn't someone who really has some power or some kind of psychic ability, but it never looks, it's the real deal. Because we as magicians, if we observe, we see all the techniques put into place. And that's the bad part. What do you think on that subject, that there are people, because they can say, oh yes, I have powers, it's debunkable, unfortunately, almost every time. And that gives a bad rep to people who might have it real, and they never came out and said, I'm clairvoyant, or I'm telekinetic, whatever it may be. What do you say to that, to those people who take advantage?
I mean, in everything, there's going to be a charlatan. There's always going to be those people that abuse it. And there are those that may not have psychic abilities, but are very able to easily read people. I mean, you've talked about it as a magician. You can pick up slight cues, little things. It only takes a short, like you throw out an open-ended question and they'll kind of guide you. And it's about, I know that a lot of them will use that to guide them towards what they want, if you know what I mean. Like, you've seen it on television where they go, oh, someone's name beginning with P, and then someone's name will pop the hand up and go, oh, I knew a Patricia or something like that. Like, you're obviously going to get something. It's the laws of average. What do I say to it? I think it's very wrong. I know, like I have mentioned before to other people, like I wouldn't say, like I've said, I wouldn't say I have psychic abilities, not at all, but I feel very in tune to the spiritual side, so such as souls and spirits have passed on. I'm sure we've mentioned this before. Would I charge someone for that? No, because again, then that leads like a disreputation to me, and they'll go, oh, well, that person's only doing it for money. They're clearly lying. And there are going to be people, like you said, out there that are very naturally gifted and could potentially do this, but because it's overshadowed by people that do take the piss, that abuse that power and that trust and take money from people that they shouldn't, then yeah, I think it's wrong. But it's in every aspect of society. You've got someone that will sell a product, but they'll oversell it and they'll be like, well, it does X, Y, and Z. But then you get it home and it doesn't. It's all about like smoke and mirrors. And I just think it is wrong. And those kind of things shouldn't be abused. Because we talked about before, that casting spells, whatever you put out in the world, you get 3 times back. Well, if you're going to start lying to people, it's sort of the same thing. If you're going to start lying, you're going to get that back at some point. You could tell someone that, oh yeah, your great aunt something or other is looking for you. But then you might have someone, you may call a spirit back to you and they may do harm. I think it's wrong and it shouldn't be done, in my personal opinion.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I'm very well against any kind of psychic work, whatever it may be, especially because it's poorly done. That's the issue. Even more, the with what they're specifically doing, it's poorly done. It's like any magician, an average magician could do it 10 times better with just some basic common sense and because the phrase does this make sense to you, it's so used by every psychic from every field. Does this make sense to you? Does this make sense to you? And if you don't answer, you won't get a response from the psychic because they need you to feed them something. And if you don't answer, they will throw it back to you. Well, you need to this is a collaboration. I'm just the means to get to an end. And it's like, no. Unfortunately, no. Haven't seen any. It's like just if whoever is watching us just watch the movie Red Lights with Cillian Murphy and Sigourney Weaver, and it's there. What's being done most of the times. That rant out of the way because it's for me it's really a shame because some people really get hurt not getting medical attention. They let diseases go really further down the road, and then it's untreatable. And yeah, it's not. It's just a disservice to humanity in general. So let's get back to the psychic work. We have different kinds of psychic abilities. And I'm just gonna name them, and we're going to do a rundown. So we have clairvoyance. What that would be, clairvoyance.
That's the psychic ability using sight. Again, I don't know much about that. I tend to stay, like I said, I pull myself away from that because it's such a rabbit hole and you don't know what you're reading is true or not. But yeah, it's using the psychic abilities to see and to look. And I believe that some people may be able to see beyond the physical world and ascertain what they need. But going back to your previous statement, there's so many people out there that they just look, like we said, those tiny little cues, and then they expand that and they go off on a rabbit warren of random crap. And it's like I said, it's a shame to the people that can do it. Because I don't have that natural gift, I've never really looked into it. Sometimes I read stuff about it and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get that. But then there's other times I read it and go, yeah, no, I've never experienced anything that in my life. And why would you even pretend that you have experienced those things? So with regards to what is clairvoyance, I'm not the expert in that field.
Yeah, I was reading about it. I saw clairvoyance, and then I went into it's the same thing, but it's clear hearing, and I was like, what? Never heard about it. Clairvoyance, yes, present in my mind. Clear hearing, I was like,
isn't it? I think, is it clair audio or audion something? But yeah, it's like listening and hearing things.
Yeah, the same
maybe those people are crazy.
Who knows? Then we have one of the most known is psychokinesis, moving objects with your mind. That seems really hard to achieve that. Like I can see, for example, some of the other ones being possible, in a sense it's It's you connecting with something or extending yourself. This is really extending yourself to grab something or to exert force to it. That's a hard
I mean,
ask.
it's one of those things of, I kind of understand the theory. So, like, I've spoke before where I'll be doing ritual and spell work and I'll sort of push myself, my subconscious and my mental out. And then sometimes, like, I can look at things, and we've all seen Star Wars, the Jedi move shit, or we've seen X-Men, and gone Jean Grey, she manages to move things with her mind and crush things. And it's almost like it's almost like I could see what I need to do. Like, in my mind's eye, I can see that I just have this force of some kind of like wave that kind of goes to something and shifts it. And how many times as a child did I sit there and just go, move, move, just move, move, please move, just move. I don't think that is ever achievable, but I like the science fiction and the romance of it. How many times have you sat there and gone, I can't be bothered to get up, I'll just move it towards me? It make the human race even lazier than it is. I understand the theory behind what needs to be done. Can it happen? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we all went through that thing of could it move? Like, I'm a smoker, so especially when you have a cigar, like, and you're like, you have like 2 inches of distance between your hand and the cigarette. Like, could you move? I don't want to get out of my place. Could you? God damn it! And you have to go. We all done that since childhood. I think that it's almost imposed that we're gonna try it, even just for sake of completion. It's not possible, or maybe it is. Let's try it.
I'm saying you'll never know unless you try.
If it moved, oh god,
you'd shit yourself.
Yeah, and then you would go move the whole house.
Yeah.
Everything.
Watch what I can do.
This is a nice one, which is precognition. This is, at least for me, it's the best of all the ones that I have listed here. Precognition, probably, it's the seeing into what's to come.
Yeah.
It goes.
There's a lot of people that talk about people being seers, and I think that relates back to like Egyptian and Greek time that they used that, and they would talk about events that happen in the future.
Yeah, the oracles.
Yep, oracles and stuff.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's not a good idea, but a good concept, like see into. So if we take into account that the universe is one and everything is connected and time is connected, and that we can move, why not some kind of how can I say it? Like a bubble going outside of you and moving towards, in this case, the future, because, well, whatever it is in the past, it's done. Then there's another one, it's called psychometry, which is...
I've never heard of that one.
No, psychometry, no. Okay, so I use this in my magic, this concept of psychometry, in the sense, like, I say for you to touch something, in this case, a card. You lose the card in the deck of cards, and then you can shuffle how many times you want, and then through touch, because you will imprint your energy on the card, and I can find it. So normally psychometry has to do with learning something about someone through an object. So, for example, you have a necklace, and I can say something about you by touching that necklace. In this case, my trick, I can find your card in a shuffle deck that you shuffled on a freely chosen card, and I can find your card because it has your, you would say, energy. And because you just touch it a little bit, I just can't find it. If I let you touch a little bit more, I would go something like into a reading, for example. And then it would come into play the charlatan type. Where I will take cues from you, from your how you dress, how you behave, how you talk, how you move, how you look at things, how responsive you. So we analyze, or we tend to analyze everything to the slightest. This would be called cold reading, but it's, for me at least, it's a wrong term. This would be warm reading, because I have information. Like cold reading, it's if I'm talking to you on the phone and I have to pick up stuff out of my head. And yeah, warm reading, I have some cues. And hot reading is I looked up information on Facebook and Instagram and social networks about you. That's the... And psychometry it's a subject used sometimes in magic. More in mentalism, you will use clairvoyance, psychometry, precognition, divination, all those terms that are more of mental based, and you would use them. So psychometry, it's just learning about someone by touching an object that it belongs to them. And then I have the last one, which has something to do with what I also wanted to talk with you, which is remote viewing. Probably you heard also about this one.
I mean, remote viewing, I may have a different sense to your remote viewing.
Okay.
Remote viewing, I would say, is me not being there, but me mentally projecting myself there. I don't know, like that's the interpretation I would get, and I suppose that would link into something that you would sent to me before about astral projection.
Yeah.
And I know, again, I've never done the traveling away, and I've never really sat down and properly done it. But I know people that do it.
So remote viewing, it's, at least from what I've read, it's a kind of clairvoyance, mobile. Let's call it mobile clairvoyance, instead of the full-on astral projection, which is the other subject. But yeah, I feel like remote viewing is something more light in the sense it doesn't involve planes, or you don't go to other
away.
Yeah, so it's more just here, but I'm just gonna go a little bit there,
over there. Yeah,
and I'll come back to...
I mean, I know that, again, you read it, you see it in TV and modern culture. I don't think, if you were truly going to do someone's reading and you were sat at home and they're sat somewhere else, like 2, 3, 4 miles down the road, it's not going to work. You can't, like you said, like psychic ability result on a two-way connection. Like say I'm the psychic, you're the person that's come to me. I'm the channel to the other world, and I need to use your energy to vibrate to find what I need. Then fucking way. How can you do that? I just going on the rant that you had before. I think that is also it's wrong. And I know people, especially, is it something in America? Is it? I know in the UK they don't really do it here, but there's people that you can ring up and you'd be like, "Oh, I need a reading. I need help," and they'd do like, "Oh, well." Like they do a tarot reading and they talk about it and they're like, "Oh, I'm picking up from your energies this," and you're just kind of like, "Nah, that's a load of rubbish." Just my opinion. Just
Yeah, they do it. I think they do it everywhere. Like readings on call. I think they do it everywhere. The US, it's I can't remember the exact location, but I think it's California, maybe, I'm not sure. So you know Darren Brown, right?
oh yes.
Who doesn't? Let's just say he's the best of the best. In his work, he's the best. There's Darren Brown and mentalism, whatever you want to call it, and then there's everyone else on that area. So there's, in Portugal, we have a good expression for that. There is no father. That's the in Portugal. Yeah. And he went to a school, university. I'm not sure exactly. I can't remember what they teach you how to develop your psychic abilities. And everyone on that school campus, it's a psychic in some way or form or shape. And he went there saying that he had psychic powers. And he fooled them so bad. Like one of the teachers said, "I'm gonna lose my job. He's really good." He's good. He has a lot of knowledge, but the thing here is there is a school where you can learn how to develop your psychic abilities, and that city in particular, or that area, just had like the shops were tarot reading here, like instead of yes, no, yeah, no, it was yes, yes, yes. Every shop was just filled with tarot signs and tarot readings, and they always rooted on the same thing. That's it's for me. It's really hard not to. I don't have any issues with anything else. I don't mind talking and knowing about when it comes to this, and especially because I've delved a little bit more, maybe than I should, into that. Because I wanted to know the ins and outs of it. And then you find someone like James Randi, who was one of maybe the greatest debunker for psychic work. He had a prize. I think it's still up. If you can prove you have psychic abilities of any kind, you win $1 million. No one has won.
No.
The prize is up for decades at this point. No one won. They had a TV show with that in the US, so it's all like what's the dowser? What's the thing to find water with the two sticks?
The thing in it, like
yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called.
It's dowsing or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And people that said I always find water, they went to put it to the test, like try to prove it with the specific test in place. They would never find water. And then they would blame someone else or something else, or
it's always something that's thrown the energy off of the vibration, and it's always someone else's fault but never theirs.
Yeah, but it, if you can do it, you can do it. It's not that hard. Like it's the universe is ganging up on you on that specific time. So yeah, some things are more. I don't want to say the word believable. I want to use something like more. Some things seem more doable. Like with all the things that we know, the things that we don't know, and we put them together and like psychokinesis. We talked about it. Probably not. It's not something. Psychometry, energy transfers. So if you have a hot tea and you grab it with your hands instead of on the handle, you grab the cup and then you move your hands to a table and you leave it there and you go a thermal reading. You see that the tea is hot, your hand is hot, like it's red on the image, and the table also. So we could go like energy here, and transfer it here. So the idea that energy can be transferred, it's applicable here. When we go into the dowsing and stuff like that.
I know there's talking about like energies and stuff. There's some part of like medicine where they talk about people don't like to use drugs, and I get some people are scared about using like chemicals and stuff like that. But they use like a tincture where so they'll take the drug and then they'll mix it with water. It'll be like 1 part drug to like 99 parts water, and then they centrifuge it down. And then they basically water it down and down and down because the theory is the water molecule has a memory and takes the energy of the drug and imprints it and passes it on. So you can have tinctures up to like there may be a small amount of drug in it, but the idea and the theory is that the water molecules have that energy transferred from the drug to them over 10, 20 cycles of this 1 part of the solution to 100 parts of like purified water. And I get the theory. Does it work in principle? I wouldn't say it's 100% effective. No way. There's no way. Nothing can be like that. I mean, you may be lucky and get, I'd say, if I was to guess at a percentage, I'd go maybe like 10%. That's just me being overly nice as well. But I get the theory. I get it. Does it work? No.
You're being really nice. Normally, you will find, that's homeopathy. So you will find sometimes how they want you to dilute it. You will find a molecule. It's not percentile, it's a molecule in the pill or in the water. A molecule. It's like you have best example is you have a pool, like a competition pool, where you have like 100 meters worlds, and you have a little cap of something and you put it there. That's the level of dilution. And then you put it in small flasks, and then you have. So because you talked about it, James Randi, the debunker, he bought how do you call it? A flask full of sleeping pills, homeopathic sleeping pills, before he went to give a speech in front of a skeptic audience, and he took the whole vial, the whole thing, like,
and just like chugged them down all in one go,
all of them. And he said, "Yep, because he made the tests, and it doesn't have any percentage. I don't know, it has like what, vitamins and something that probably it's good for you. Like sometimes I take vitamins every morning, like small pills. It looks like a peanut, and it tastes like peanuts, which is really odd. It has to do with all the oils that it has. But it's like, for me, taking all of that. It will probably, with the water, it won't feel that good in the stomach, but it won't do you. If you took a vial of sleeping pills, oh yeah, you're seek medical help immediately. So
yeah.
But yeah,
and I think like homeopathy kind of branches into the psychic bit, because it may work for some people, but I feel the willingness, like if you are wanting it to work, it's almost like a placebo. Like it's gonna work because in your mental state, this is what you want. So it's like, yeah, you go to a psychic, a clairvoyant, someone else, the tarot reader, you go, right, I want this to work. I need it to work. I need it. And then they're going to tell you things that you want to hear. And like you say, you pick up on social cues and you expand on little bits and you go, right, this is, their eyes brightened up at this bit. So we'll go on that trail. And yeah, it's all social cues. It's all about the perceived like experience. I think you've talked about this as a magician. Like it's all about what the person that's experiencing it, it's their reality and how they want to interact with the world. So yeah, if they want it to work, they're going to feel like it's working. Just like, yeah, you could take a Tic Tac, the little white little minty things, and you could tell someone that it's paracetamol, and then and half an hour to an hour later, mysteriously their pain's gone. Whether they forgot about it or in their mental subconsciousness they've gone, right, we've taken this now, the pain will fade, and then the body suppresses the pain output. Yeah.
It's, the thing is, the placebo effect is it works, or else it wouldn't even have a name. So it works. It has some interaction with your body. And the psychic, for example, the psychic healers, they take advantage of that. And they are, I don't want to call names, so I won't call names to anyone. But they do a disservice. I'll just put it at that. Because they are, the thing is, they always pick up the people that you can't see what is the real issue. They might have a real issue, and they most of the times have cancer, something related to the liver, stomach. You can't see it. Those are the people chosen to go on stage in front of a huge audience and be healed. And because you have adrenaline pumping and you want it to be true and you believe that person that is telling you something, you can walk without the cane, or you feel better. But the people with real disabilities are in the back. Those people also want to come to the front and be healed. Those are never called. And there you can see the disparity on the workings. If the person has 2 legs, 2 arms, we're good.
Yeah.
If they can see, they're fine. If they're blind, well, that's an issue. So they will stay in the back, and everything is really coordinated. Not sure if it still goes on. I believe so. So I think that's still a thing.
And I know. I mean, going back to my favorite nitpicking, Christianity. I know that. I mean, there may be some people that are healed by God. Maybe. Have I ever seen it? No. There used to be a church that I used to go to with my friend, and they were lovely people, don't get me wrong. But they were a Pentecostal church, and part of their thing was every now and then they'd do these healings where they'd lay people down and they'd pass the holy divine energy. Yeah, okay, I get that. all right. Is it going to fix someone? I don't think so. If you have a mental problem, so say you have a phobia or you have a subconscious fear, it'll help you overcome it. But like you said, if I'm missing a limb, it's not going to grow back because someone with God powers has touched me. If I have a damaged kidney, it's not going to suddenly start working again just because someone touched me. And yeah, I used to sit there in the church and watch this happen. And they're like, "Do you not want to come and experience it?" I'd be like, "No." I don't. If God really or any God really wanted to heal you, they wouldn't do it that way, personally. They talk about godlike powers and a mortal vessel. That can't channel through, sorry. No, not for me.
No, and the thing is, it's someone human that is channeling something, some kind of energy to heal you. Wouldn't it be easier if the gods, whatever god it may be, went to each home and do it directly? Why do you have to go to a church or whatever avenue it is, having to be surrounded by people with gazillion illnesses, someone there that will touch you and heal you? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the sense like, why are you so special? What skill do you have, and why do I have to pay a lot of money to be healed?
Because any God doesn't care about money. I'm not going to call out religion and be like, get your act together, but we talk about psychics taking advantage. But yeah, people that charge and they are blessed with this divine power that they can heal. Well, if you've got that, you shouldn't use it as a money-making scheme. You've been given a gift. You should use it accordingly. Not, oh, of course I'll heal you for like £500. The people that, if you had that gift and you could help them, are not going to be able to afford that, because the people that can afford it have gone the science way. And that's why a lot of people that are in the lower end of society turn to these kind of things, because they cannot afford the medical attention that they need. And so they go these different routes and they go, oh, well, you know, it's cheaper than the going to a hospital and having it fixed. So it must work. And then they waste their money. And I don't like it. Not to go off on a tangent. I think it's so wrong.
And sometimes you spend more money than if you would go to the hospital.
Oh,
it gets to that point.
Because you may feel a tiny little bit better, and you go, well, if I do it again, I'll build on that. I'm building that. And again, it's that mental state of, I want this to work. It needs to work. And yeah, it's just, come on.
And there are people who make life decisions based on psychics, because they have to go, every big decision, they have to go there and have a meeting and just to get an answer, yes or no. And you go so many times there that the psychic knows everything about you, every little detail. So he knows what you want to hear. That's the main thing. He knows what you want to hear. Do you want approval or not? So should I change jobs? If he knows from previous meetings that you are not happy with your job, he will say, yeah. The cards say it's a good decision.
Yeah.
Like, your friend could have told you that. Like,
yeah.
Just ask him, you're not happy with your job? Just quit or get a new one. Or, do I need a new car? Do I need to buy it really new? I have one, it's old. Yeah, he knows or she knows that you're having problems like for 2 years with your car that you spent so they base their reactions, and they give you responses that, like, it's common sense. At this point, you just have to be its common sense. What you need to do,
and it's like, as well, by the time you've got to that point, I think most people, where they've reached out to a psychic and gone, I need this answering, the reason why they generally are going there is they will mainly tell you the answer that they want to hear. And at that, like you said, even if they've met you the first time, sometimes, like you said, should I change jobs? You wouldn't be asking that question if you weren't happy. Should I change relationships? You wouldn't ask that question if you were happy. So 9 times out of 10, you subconsciously know the answer. You're just paying someone to say yes. But like you said, your friend could tell you, your next door neighbour could tell you these things. And the fact that they abuse it makes, for that small percentage of people that potentially do have a gift, it makes everyone just very skeptical. It's like when people, like we talked about before, way back in the first episode, when we said, what is it to be Wiccan? Are people ashamed? Back a long time ago, you said you were a witch. You got classed as like the dark arts, the dark cult, looking at the shadow. It's all connotation of wrong because of people's interpretation of that through popular culture and media and the society. And it's maybe in the future people will leave psychics alone and stop abusing it, and then maybe the true ones will come through. But it's an easy money making, so there's a lot of, again, we'll use that word, charlatans out there that are only in it for an easy bit of coin.
And the problem is, if people see it or realize it's in most of readings, and just this is for whoever watches this, in psychic readings, people tend to focus on the positive thing or on the hit. We call it a hit. The psychic will be searching for information with the P's. Do you know with the A? Is it Anna, Annie, Amanda, and they cite every A in the nouns, and it's not a hit, and then they go to but it's a P. Probably it's someone you know, someone in your family, close family. If you don't give a positive response, they will go to friends, someone you know, someone you work with, or someone that someone you know knows. So it expands a lot. And then through all those misses, they hit one. And more times than not, people at the end of the sessions will say that it was great. He knew things that no one knew about me. Even he guessed something, whatever it is, the hit. But they don't account for the 67 misses in the whole session. They just focus on the hit. But I would say it's a common thing, because you're in the search for, you want to talk to a loved one, and you're just waiting to, and when you hear something that your head goes, yes, even that sometimes you gave that information 10 minutes before, which happens a lot also, and they take advantage of that. So if there are any psychics, you really have your job cut out to you, because the amount that exists that do the service that I've been saying to someone who has, which I never saw. I'm in the point, this, for me, it's a point I can't prove a negative, because I don't believe in anything external. But if there are someone, you're in really bad spot, because it's impossible to, unless someone comes up really and makes a really huge display of power, in the middle of the street, lifting a car, 2, moving, like that kind of superpower,
Yeah.
superhero stuff. Like, it's really hard for people to believe or not believe. So it's really, because there are people who really believe in those psychics, and they think it adds value to their lives. I'm no one to judge them, whatever they like to do or not, what they believe. With the psychics, I have a slight issue. With the people that seek help in whatever they want to, but the psychics that are taking advantage of that,
Bad man.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. That's just me. And well, it's the sheer thought of doing that, knowing that you're doing wrong, just for the sake of 50 quid or 100, which is not, it's a lot more. You make the high paid ones, they get a lot of money per session, in the realms of 600.
Yeah.
So a huge business.
That is definitely being exploited.
The thing is, yeah, it's overly abused by everyone who does it. And I only saw one, and I remembered this. I saw one man, if I'm not, I think he already passed away. He really believed that he had some kind of power, ability, and he didn't charge a cent to anyone. He would go there and help them. People would want to give him money, and he wouldn't take it. Even if he didn't have any ability of any kind, just how he presented it, like, he would go there, he wouldn't charge, he would go drive, I don't know how long to go there, do whatever he needed to do, go back home. That is a value.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he had, maybe he hadn't, but he did it because he wanted and he could help people in whatever means it was. So that's one example, the only one that I saw, that wouldn't take anything. No money, no offerings, no gifts, no whatever it was.
And personally, that's how I would work. I've done it in my own job as a veterinary nurse. People come to me. It's not like, oh, the dog's broken its leg. I won't be like, oh, I'll fix it for free. But a little cut, and I know, well, if I can clean it now, it's going to stop it needing antibiotics and pain relief. And that's where you'd go, here, take this, I just need you to do this. And then that is, it's nothing at the end of the day. A little bit of soap, or a little bit of, you need to apply this kind of bandage, and then in an hour we're going to take it off, and the body's going to start doing its own kind of thing. Those little things make people realize that, yeah, you're not in it for money, you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. And I do believe a lot of psychics, the ones that I personally believe, the ones that do have powers don't charge. And the ones that do charge are the ones that are the fakes, because they saw a way to make easy money, quick money, and they just roll with it. Whether it's to the detriment of another person or not, they don't care. They've got the money at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, true. That's really true. So we still have to. I don't know if you want to keep going. We went. I warned Becky that I was going probably ranting a bit, but I think this was double ranting at this point. Let's go for the astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So have you ever tried astral projection?
Yes, I have.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, first of all, how did it feel? That's my genuine question, not what I have here.
So I did it without realizing I was doing it. So at the beginning of this podcast, I talked about children and how they have these vivid imaginations and they do things. I remember being a young child and my mum was going to work and I really didn't want her to go to work. I wanted to stay. And I got myself so worked up that I was like, right, I'm going to bed. So I think, and I say I was a child, I was probably about like 13, 14 years old. I really didn't want her to go. I can't remember why. Something had happened and I just wanted her to stay and she wouldn't. And I think I was also worried like something was going to happen on the road. I would say it kind of maybe coincided with some kind of awakening at the time. But yeah, I remember going and laying in bed and just imagining that like I pushed myself out and I could almost feel and see my body laid there. Whether that was just my mind's eye going, this is how that body would look. I know the image of my room, so that of course I would know what that looks like. And then I sort of travelled with her to work and off she went. And then by the time I felt like she was at work, I felt like I came back and then like I just calmed down. So that was my experience. It wasn't like I could feel the wind blowing through there was nothing. It was very isolated. And it was like nothing else could really affect me. Like I could not hear the sound, but yeah, almost there was sound, but you wasn't aware of it. It was like you were blocking it out. And then afterwards, like when I got home, or when I got home, when I returned, and then like years later, I always think back to that moment. And in fact, actually, when you sent me the questions that you were like, I'm going to hit these topics, and it got to the astral projection, I was like, oh yes, I remember doing this as a child. And it is something that I have also thought about afterwards. So I went to a Catholic school and they talked about like meditation and stuff like that. And they teach you to sit down, listen to like the music. So maybe they've got some kind of like calming water running in the background or like birds tweeting, those kind of like very soothing kinds of musics that are easy and soft on the ears and not sharp and harsh. And you just kind of relax your body. You like control your breathing, only focus on your breathing. And then you've got just some words kind of. I mean, we did this a long time ago when we talked about anxiety easy way. We talked about we'll go to another place. You're gonna go right. There's a wood, and obviously your imagination brings this wood. I, in my opinion, personally feel like astral projection is a little bit is almost identical. Maybe in these meditative states, when we go to these places to calm ourselves, it's almost like we've pushed ourselves out of our physical being. And we're in this not alternate, but the astral sort of our ethereal self. And then we go to these places and we interact with the room. We open the doors, we pick up pictures, we walk around. You can imagine the scents, you can hear them. You walk down the stairs, you open the door, and you still got that person speaking to you, kind of narrating what's going on. But it's other things could be affecting. You're suddenly in another world. And I have had it before where I walked through a forest and I remember them being like, oh, you need to choose the left or the right path. Being awkward, I chose to go straight through the trees. Like I was moving the trees out, climbing. And I imagined the feel of that. And they're talking about, you've got the guy who's talking about like the feet and everything of how it feels. But again, I was experiencing something completely different to that. We get to the house and they talk about what you see, but then in my version of this world that I was in, there was other people there and they were interacting, they were smiling, they weren't necessarily talking, but they would hand me things. And I believe like the astral version of that, because we talk about going to like the astral plane, to other places, and even astral travel where you could go to other planets and stuff like that. I'm not saying as a 14, 15, 16-year-old teenager that I experienced vast astral travel throughout the sea of everything, but I believe personally that's my experience. And there has been times when my friend died, we've talked about it before, where I've kind of pushed myself out and I look around and I'm looking for those energies that are preventing me from sleeping or making me feel sad. And I come out of my physical being, check everything, make sure everything's okay, move through the house, not necessarily picking things up, because as an astral being, you can't really interact with the physical world. Like, if I pushed a door, it's not going to work. There's been times a couple of years ago where I was having bad anxiety and I just felt like all I needed to do was get out of the house and go, but physically I couldn't be bothered. So I remember like trying to go to sleep and laying on a bed, and in my mind I can remember like leaving my body, turning, seeing me and my boyfriend laying in the bed, like not opening the window but moving through the window and just kind of like pushing myself off. And I'm just flying. And again, not having the wind move my hair. And I don't know if you've ever seen, is it The Snowman, that very old Christmassy film where he's like, I'm walking in, and he's like kind of traveling through that with a snowman. Maybe it's just a British thing, but there's like that, and he's just traveling through, he's like flying through the sky and seeing everything around him. And yeah, to me, it's a very similar kind of thing. Yeah,
could you sorry to interrupt
yeah, of course.
Would you say it's the astral projection is something in the realm of that is your conscience? I sometimes imagine consciousness as something. Let's imagine it's your brain or the shape of the brain, sphere. And would you say astral projection is something like that? Like something that goes instead of, I know it's like the common idea of astral projection is like something, your soul gets out of your body and then it goes. But you're talking about the concept of imagination, and wouldn't that be something that you are doing? In the sense, you give yourself that form, maybe because it's imbued in your mind, but could it be something? Could it be your consciousness leaving and then assuming a form that you want? Or is it just in itself your bodily form that's ethereal and it's exiting the body?
So I gave the example of when I jumped out the window. In the feeling that I had and I was flying, I do recall having wings. So I think your consciousness, whatever you... I mean, as at the time when I was doing these things, I never really labeled it. It's not until like, I'd say the last maybe like 6 to 12 months where I was looking at stuff about like astrology and stuff like that, and it talked about like astral projection and those kind of things. That's, I would say, I always thought it was, the conscious, like you've got the conscious body, like the mind, and you're pushing yourself out. And like my explanation for why I'm like, well, of course I would know this room. My mind knows it. Of course I would imagine it. But maybe it is because I was pushing myself out and I was really seeing it. Could I? I'm not. We talk about you very skeptical about psychics, and like I said, I wouldn't say I've got these amazing abilities, but I talk about everyone being able to have them, and it's just working on it, pushing it, like practicing it over and over again. So I would say, yeah, as you push yourself out, the more you work that muscle. Maybe one day you'll turn around and you have a tail, or you turn around one day and you're like, nah, I fancy being, this is the kind of form I want to take. Sometimes I've done it once where I just kind of pushed myself out and I had no shape. I was just kind of like a cloud of gas is what I recall feeling. But it's about, yeah, working that muscle. We've talked about it, where it's not something that you can do straight away. It takes time, and just keep working at it, and then all of a sudden one day you'll go, well, I want to be like this, and that's how you can just train it that way.
Would you, as you're practicing it and trying through meditation, would it be a progression thing, or would it be from 0 to done? Example, like, would you go like getting out, projecting a bit more, and then you would get to a point that you could fully project yourself? Or is it from 0 to it's done?
My experience with what I've done was, it was like, I'm in my body, I'm out. I've never really had I'm moving a little bit out and I'm not strong enough to leave. I would say by the time that you're ready, you may have had a subconscious preparation. Hence why you've looked into meditation, you've looked about breathing techniques, and you've already kind of started the groundwork. And by the time you go, so say, yeah, like, you wake up, you've had a dream, you go and research, you're like, oh, well, that was really weird, I'm going to look it up. And then they talk about astral projection and you read a bit more, and then maybe not that night, but the next day you go back and you read a bit more, and then you go, oh, breathing techniques, okay. And then you read about it and you start practicing it. And maybe at that point, you're pushing and then it's coming in and it's kind of working like away. But I believe with astral projection, there's always that tether. And if something cuts it, there's a chance that something may go wrong. That could lead to some kind of mental problem as you're coming back. You think of scuba divers and they're in they've got all the tanks, and they say if they come up too quickly, you can have problems like blood
pressure.
Yeah. You get it called the bends or something like that. I think it's exactly the same. If you're astral projecting and you're fucking miles away, you can't just come back. This is why I've read things where it's like, you need to, if you're going to do it and you're going to go, you need to be in a place where it's quiet. You're not going to be disturbed. You're not going to have someone just walking in and start talking to you about something shit, because, yeah, your mind conscious is going to snap. And it could do it, but it's going to fracture something, break something. It's not all going to come back, and you're going to then have to recenter yourself. And
there are risks to it.
Yeah, I would say there is. Just with everything, just like with magic, there's always going to be a risk. And
go.
Yeah, it always has some sort of toll on the body, and you may find that you're doing it and then you drift asleep, and that's your body going, yeah, you need to come back, but you can't, snap it back. And then you fall asleep and gradually you come back and it just ebbs and flows and drifts back in. And then in the morning you're like, oh, I was doing this and I fell asleep. Shit. So yeah, I just think the human body itself is incapable of such great things, that mentally as well, it also has ways to shield and block you and protect the body so it doesn't become damaged.
You talked about when you're in astral form, you can't interact with objects, you can't open a door, lift something up, but can you interfere in people's minds? Example, if they are sleeping.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to, how am I going to word this? I suppose in theory, yes. But I think the minds that you can interfere with are the ones that are more receptive of that. that the channels are already open. It's like you can't push a door that's a pull. Do you know what I mean? And some people, like, this is just my belief. If that door is closed, so say it's like you're inside and the door is a push out, I couldn't come along and push in because that's not where the door opens. If it's open a crack, you could maybe pull it open or even just ebb and flow around and listen. But I think or even if, say, someone is into this astral projection and they don't want to be interfered with, they would have mechanisms of locking it down. So no one, even if they have a moment of weakness where it opens ajar a little, that there's no way that someone can get in properly. Like, there will be people that practice this and stuff like that, of preventing people coming in.
Yeah, I've heard on a different subject on hypnosis that you can train yourself to have some locking mechanisms that if someone hypnotizes you, they can't go further than whatever barriers you put up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can interfere, but can you change? For example, you can interact with someone, for example, who's sleeping, who doesn't have any barriers up. Can you change something on that person?
I personally believe no. You can suggest, and I think this may be steps into like dream work. But it's not suddenly like, oh, easy, I'm going to come to you, I'm going to go, right, this is what we're doing, and then suddenly go, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. I think you could whisper something and then suddenly you start thinking about it and then you'll be like, why is that in my head? And then you think about it and then you either act on it or you don't. I don't think you can change. I can't go into your head and be like, right, easy, you're no longer a magician, you're a mechanic. I don't think that's not something. I don't think physically you can go in someone and switch something like that. I personally don't think that, but I think you can make suggestions. Again, we go back to D&D. There's a spell called suggestion, and they roll to see if they are susceptible to it or not. And if they are susceptible, it may be because you've whispered something in their head, and now they're going, yeah, go on, that sounds like a good idea. Or you may have the people that succeed and they thought about it, but they're just going to ignore it. I personally believe it's very similar. Like, you can suggest, but it's on that person whether they choose to act or not.
Yeah, I immediately after I asked the question, Inception came to my mind, the movie, and I was like, oh god. It's the same concept. It's trying to put some idea in someone's mind to make him change on a specific subject. And you talked about planes, and I was reading about the planes and how many they are. And first of all, it sounded interesting because you have, I think, 7 planes, right?
I think there's something like that. Again,
where are my notes?
Whilst I've done it, I haven't gone, right, I want to travel here. It's more of a safeguarding coping mechanism that I've done. And like I said, I was probably doing it before I realised what it was. Have I physically gone, I want to go here? No. Normally I keep myself tethered to this place because, again, I think that my mental state is already, again, I go back to my friend that died. I already felt like I was broken and fractured a little. I didn't want to risk anything further. So I, almost like a dog on a leash, I push to the limit of the boundary of that like lead, and I float around, and then I kind of come back and circle back, and then I'm home. I've never really forced myself out, and this I know I spoke about before, like imagining the houses and interacting with that. That may be a plane that I was not aware that I was on. But again, we were talking about snapping back in the meditation. Once it's coming to a close, they talk about walking back and bringing yourself back, so you feel your breathing and your muscles, and you start to move and stuff like that. And I believe that's a form of you coming from wherever you are back. But I'm not 100% sure on the planes.
Yeah, just something in the research and the readings. You have 7 planes. Yeah, I was so 1 to 4. It has to do with personality. So it has to do. Oh yeah, it has to do with one incarnation, just a single incarnation. It doesn't have the other ones, the planes 5, 6, and 7. It involves individuality. It has an immortal characteristic and remains through incarnations. So probably, I don't know, the interpretation that I have is like the first 4 planes, you just can go there now in your lifetime, and when you incarnate as someone else, those 4 aren't available. I don't know. It was. I read it and I was like, okay, so it means like I can't visit those 4 anymore. So it's a one-time chance to do those, because they are associated with yourself in this time. The other ones are the ones. Probably in the simplest thing for me to think is the planet stays the same and the cities evolve throughout time. Something like that. Yeah, which is interesting. That because when I was starting to read about astral projection in the planes, I really didn't have any idea about it. I had the concept, but when they start like plane 1, plane 2, plane 3, and they have meanings, that's the part I was like, okay, this is really out of my game. So first plane, it has to do with physical, ethereal plane. Then you have lower astral, upper astral, and lower mental. Those are the first 4, which are the on this time. Then you go to 5, 6, and 7, which is upper mental, lower spiritual, and then the 7th is spiritual, which was odd for me to think that the last one is the spiritual, and then you have some which are different,
like the sub levels, kind of. Yeah,
and I was like, okay, so you aren't in the spiritual plane, like on the first level, on the first plane, you're just hovering. Like you have a long way to go up to spiritual plane, which is how easy or hard is it to go through planes?
This comes back to, as I was saying, like there's that snap back, and I think it's like you get through to 1, and it's not that bad if you fall back, and you have to be familiar with that plane before you move on to the next and the next. And if you go straight to the spiritual, there may be a complete detachment from your physical form. That is my theory. When we talk about, or when you mention about like 1 to 4, and you're saying like once you've been to that place and then you reincarnate, you can't go back to it. I think it's not like you can't go to plane 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think it's more you can't go to that version of plane 1, 2, 3, and 4, because, like you said, it relates to that body and things that are important to that body. And then reincarnated as someone else, and then it would be a different version of the world, because whilst you've been reincarnated, you're still going to have the odd thing that may be different that you like and dislike. You may now prefer the colour orange, whereas before you preferred the colour blue. And I think it's those things, and I think that there are people that have astral projected in various types of religions. I mean, we talked about before about like the Egyptians and the Greeks, and I know like the Buddhists do it as well. And there's that sort of, you can transition yourself to become more. And there were some people that said like Buddhists could like float if they achieved true sort of enlightenment. But yeah. And that may be that spiritual plane of the soul has gone all through those planes and is up there, but there's no physical tether. There's a lot of people that talk about things that keep you on this earth are physical tethers, and it may be that once you reach that spiritual realm, it's because you have nothing to bring you back, and there won't be a way to bring you back because you have no attachments to this world. I know there was a television program for children. It was called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's pretty cool. And that talked about one of the races of people could control the air element. And it talked about like monks and Buddhists and like nomads and living off the land, but being spiritually aware. And the avatar who could control all four elements had to be not only control all the four elements, but of the spiritual part as well. And the only way that they could get to the spiritual enlightenment, the true potential, was to let go of everything that tethered them to the planet, to the world. So the main character had a love interest, and part of the show, there was a part where he needed to access that level, and he couldn't get there because he had this love, this thing that he wanted to keep, and he didn't want to let go of it. But then he realized he had to. He let go. He ascended into the spiritual part of him, and he ends up getting hurt and coming crashing back down. Then there's another character later on in a sister show where he loses someone that he loves. He no longer has that connection, that anchor point, and then he's able to walk out and he can fly and do all sorts of weird shit, which is again crazy, but it goes back to the monks and the Buddhists that used to meditate and could not eat, and they could survive weeks at a time without doing anything. And again, it may be because they don't have those mortal and physical attachments that they're able to descend or ascend to this spiritual realm. And there is no once you're there, I think you're safeguarding everything. You've been through planes 1 to 6. You've reached 7, and you can float around 7. And I think that's where it comes from.
Okay, because it was interesting, like that you had so many levels. I was like, okay, probably some planes, but one specific into the spiritual was interesting to read. And I saw other types of things that you could do, but it seemed too superhero for me. That's the reason I didn't. I read it and I just forgot about it because
not your cup of tea.
It was like reading X-Men magazines, and I was like, because it didn't make sense in the concept of what I was reading. Because if I'm reading like everything I was reading about Wicca, it made sense, and then I get to this part, like some of the part of the psychic work and the astral projection. Some things were really good, and the other ones I was like, why is this here? So I'm like, okay. So I think we covered quite a lot in these 4 episodes about Wicca. We ranted, we discussed everything, not everything, but a lot of things. Some things we could have gone more into depth, but I think it also would be quite boring because it had to do with like technical aspects of this is this because of this. This is in relation to Mars, which is related to the crystal XY whatever. And it would be just, if you have interest in it, just go read about it.
Go do your own research.
Yeah. Well, this is it for the Wicca religion. Next week, we're going to go into another subject, which is in relation to the spiritual world. But it's, I'd say, the spiritualism movement, which is interesting. It relates to the psychic work in part, and also a bit into not astral projection, but some bits into spirits and stuff. And it's a subject that I really like because it has to do with something I studied in magic, and I think it's interesting. Beck is gonna go flying blind at this point, I think. I'm not sure.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, there's some parts of spiritualism that I do enjoy, and I did it. This, again, we talked about it again way back in the first episode where my friend died and I felt lost and I just lost myself in Christianity. And then I stepped into spiritualism and like Buddhism. And then I carried on reading and exploring. And then I fell into Wicca. So it's kind of my roots. A lot of stuff comes from that. I'm very interested in the subject. Again, I don't claim to be an expert in the thing, but who is the expert really? They say they're experts, but who truly is an expert?
Not an expert. I really just like the subject, and the UK was the entry point in Europe for spiritualism. So, like a lot of things that entered in Europe, 18th century, 19th century, it came through England. US,
can't help
England.
It, we'll just colonize.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching The Magician and Witch. Next week, same time and same day. Then probably we'll do some changes, but we'll let you know at that time. So, Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.